This week's podcast is looking at problems that we have with horses under saddle. We're going to talk about the canter lead, evading the bit, briefing, and thinking to the left. Hello, welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast helping people to understand their horses better, to provide solutions in a calm, connected way. I'm Jenny Langley.
And I'm Mark Langley.
Now, Mark, I know you like talking about a horse's thoughts. So let's start off with this particular question. It comes from Jane from France, and she has a 5-year-old Western trained quarter horse who has improved incredibly since she started following you. She's now riding him and feels really safe. However, she's finding that in the arena, he can be dull or rushy. And she's got a particular problem with getting him to turn to the left or to the right. So what she's finding is that when she picks up on one of the reins, he will bend and lean in the opposite direction. So if she picks up on the left lane, he'll bend and lean to the right. And when she picks up on the left, when she picks up on the right, he'll bend and lean to the left. So she's finding that riding outside is better, but the problem is still noticeable. Do you have any tips for her to help him to think into the right rein?
Yeah. Well, firstly, the reason he's like that is if a lot of Western horses are trained and the spur sort of is on either side of the horse's, rib cage to move the shoulders left and right, and the reins are always knocking the horse's head into a position that the person kind of puts the horse into a head position, but then they're just riding the body with their spurs, so that the feet and the reins aren't really connected, or the thoughts and the feet aren't connected, because everything's just, I want to put your head in this position and I'm going to ride you with spurs, your body in this position. So after a while, the horses that carry anxiety and they're not really centered, you can be bending their head in any direction, but it doesn't control where their thoughts are. They just be thinking out to the right. And because he's a bit of an evasive sort of horse, because of his anxiety, he's kind of thinking to safety or somewhere else. So he just bends and he keeps thinking in the one direction. So he leaks out through his outside shoulder. And it's because of all that flexion and bumping and flexion that's probably happened to him. So, it's really tough on those horses, because they get so much, I guess, satisfaction and softness out of being in balance with the rein, that it's really unfair that they have to be so bent and sort of broken in the head and neck. So, so what you've got to sort of look at, I think, is I'll go back to a side pull when horses are really that bendy, and it'll be more than just a one rein start. I'll start to lift them up. I'll probably lift them up in their back up. They're going to want to put their head down, but because I'm not in a bit, I can hold longer. Sometimes I might even do it on the ground for a while, whereas I lift them up, I'm going to lift their wither up. And I'll establish a backup where I can lift them up and back them up. Okay, so some horses that are real chronic horses with a lot of lateral flexion on them, it's very hard to kind of hold them on a bend and get them to follow that rein around. So if you get in a really good backup where you feel them lifting and backing, not just bending and running backwards, but lifting and backing, then you can back up and maybe, for instance, pick up a rein and say lead off to your left or your right. The other thing I do in flexion, because if you bend their head round at a standstill, they're just going to bend all the way around and they're just going to hold their head round there and think that's what I have to do. So what I would do in that situation is I would pick up the rein. And when they bend their head all the way around, and in a side pull or a halter, I do this, is I'd lift and hold and lift and hold and lift and hold, and they get a little bit uncomfortable until they kind of move their feet a little bit, and then you just leave them, and then you do that again and again, and then you might put another back up on them where you back them up, and then you lift and hold till they move their feet in both directions. And then what'll start to happen is they can't just hold their head bent; they have to do something and eventually start to follow that rein. Okay, so, and then if you're riding in general, what I might say is if you pull the left rein, if you're on a straight line at a walk and you pull the left rein and the horse bends left and goes out through the right shoulder, there's two ways you can do it. There's the first way, which is probably a bit easier for your horse and you for a bit, is as soon as that horse leaks out through that shoulder and just bends its head around like rubber, you just pick up two reins, you say back up, and while the horse is in the back up, then you lift out on that left rein and see if the horse can follow that left rein out. And then you ask it to go forward again. And then you pick up the left rein, the horse will bend. And if it starts to leak, you just pick up two reins and Say, let go of that. So what's happening ultimately is you're asking the horse to let go of the right thought and bring the thoughts back in the middle, and then say, follow the left rein. Okay. And you're just teaching the horse that you can't bend and go through your shoulder. So as soon as you feel that leak and that thought start to go right when the rein's left, then you just pick up on 2 reins and say, not available, back up, try again. And you just keep repeating that until the horse goes, I think maybe I can't leak that way, and this way, there's the path of least resistance there. And then all of a sudden you pick up the left rein, they start to think left, and you just ride around doing a fair bit of that. And that's usually what I do on the Western horses that have had, as I say, heaps of flexion. The next thing about the rib cage, because the horse has been held and pushed everywhere sideways with the legs over and over and over, it really doesn't understand that nice forward, and that's why it's a bit sour, because it's had so much spur on it that you put legs on, and it gets a bit lost and worried in the legs because it's been fully micromanaged in the rib cage. So with horses like that, I go back to a belly rope, and I teach them when I put a forward rib cage pressure on that belly rope, you can come forward. You can come forward and get that natural young horse forward back. When you squeeze 2 legs, they go forward. When you squeeze 2 legs, they go forward. Obviously, squeeze the belly rope, they go forward. Squeeze the belly rope, then it turns into squeeze the legs, go forward, squeeze legs. And when you go forward, just drop the reins and let your horse go whatever wobbly way it wants. This is after you've done some belly roping. And then when you let the fence catch it if you have to, and then just go forward again until the horse just goes, just go forward and travel, just go forward and travel. And as I say, while you're in the arena, you don't have to worry about the horse running off, because the fence will catch you a little bit up there, and then you turn it in a new direction, and then you say, squeeze forward and just travel. And then if you start over a while, you put the 2 together, eventually forward means forward. And later on, you probably have to get back to me on that, or ask another question about when you want your lateral work back, to get your horse to work laterally, you should have your reinsmanship up to scratch, your nice forward transition in the legs, and then we can start to work back on lateral work. But some of those horses have just been run across the arena sideways. You're better off just getting good basic, follow that rein in a turn, go forward, back up. And with those 3 things, you can sort of undo a lot of that other stuff.
Okay, staying with left and right things. This question is from Sarah from Australia, and she'd like to know about getting the right canter lead. She's got an 11-year-old gelding who was originally broken in and turned out, so he hasn't had a lot of riding until he was sort of about half a year ago. Now he gets ridden 3 times a week. He's going really well, but he's quiet, good on trails, but not easy to get moving in an arena. He's reluctant unless he's following another horse, and they're having trouble getting him to pick up the right canter lead. He's only done it once or twice, but he favours the left. She'd like to know, is this due to a lack of education or possibly a body issue?
Well, I can't answer the question if it's a body issue. And I don't know if it's a body issue, because without looking at the horse and looking at how it moves and if it's lame or not, I wouldn't know if it's a body issue. Most cases, a canter lead can be a mind issue. I'll address the mind issue. If you think it's a body issue, you might have to get someone else close by to have a look at it to see if there's any problems in the body. But if you sort of work on a few of these things in the mind, you might find it could be the mind issue, and you won't need someone to come and look at the body. So basically, dull in the arena, needs to follow another horse. Horse hasn't got a lot of confidence in thinking forward, so you don't know where the thoughts are going to go when you ask for a canter. So basically, at speed without another horse in front of it, it's kind of lost, and it'll be just thinking to where its mates are or going through its strongest eye. So that's why it's not getting the canter lead you want. Well, that's usually a strong reason why the horses aren't getting a canter lead that we want. If a horse is dull, that means when we ask, say if we're in a walk and we ask for a canter and we go for walk to canter, if he's in the arena and he's dull, well, I don't think he can even get to walk to canter transition. So you might be just kind of having to kind of bubbly in the trot and keep going in the trot and keep going in the trot and finally fall into a canter. By that time, you're going at a faster speed, all those sorts of things. And maybe if the horse is anxious about the legs, it's always going to leak out through its more dominant eye when it finds the canter. So you've got to go back to, and like the last question, a good leg transition. So go back to, maybe teaching your horse to lead forward off a belly rope softly, so you can sort of say, hey, come forward really softly, come forward, get the rib cage really soft and supple, so that horse can float forward to rib cage pressure when you pull forward on the belly rope, and then you turn it into, can you go forward softly to leg pressure? And can you go into a fast walk, slow walk? Can you go up into a jog with my heels, just even heels? And the horse is very comfortable at finding forward, no stress, no anxiety, not dull, not kind of wobbly. Just go forward softly to the legs. If a horse hasn't got an accelerator, you can't expect it to, strike a canter lead. And then the horse has got to have a steering wheel. So then basically you ride your horse around using the reins, making sure that every time you pick up a right rein, the horse is thinking right at a walk. If you pick up a left rein, the horse is thinking left at the walk. If you pick up two reins and back up, the horse thinks backwards. It's not just kind of half, thinking one way, but moving its feet to the right rein, but still thinking left, but kind of doing it. So kind of turning at a walk is going to be leaking on a turn at a canter. So the horse will just throw any lead because its thoughts are somewhere else. Okay. So I think, keep working on, good steering, and then good steering at the trot. So can I trot a straight line? And then if I do a, say, 45 or 90 degree turn, does that horse really think into that rein, travel that way at the trot? And the horse can hold the trot, can it hold it nicely? I don't have to keep the horse going all the time. Can it hold the walk? So then if the horse can hold a speed, then basically everything going past it at a certain speed, it's not slowing it down all the time. It's not leaking out. You don't have to use your legs to keep it going. If you have to use your legs to keep your horse going, means you're going to wear out the accelerator. So you need more oomph to get it into a canter. So that's why the horse has to hold its speed. So to hold its speeds, you might walk it. Every time it stops, you squeeze it again. Every time it stops, you squeeze it again, but you allow it to stop. And that's the same in the trot. You're trotting your horse. Every time your horse walks, you squeeze it. You say walking's not available. And then soon enough, the horse is trotting around the arena and you're just following your horse's rhythm. So when your horse can do that, then it's free forward. It's going nicely forward. The next thing is, with that accelerator, as I explained before, is can I squeeze my horse straight from a very slow walk into a fast trot? Can I squeeze it from a standstill into a fast trot? Okay, if I can squeeze it from a standstill in a fast trot, if I put about the same squeeze on it, I can go from a medium walk to a canter, and you teach the horse to strike a canter. Don't worry about the lead. Can you strike a canter? Can you strike a canter 50,000 times if you have to? And then the horse goes, I can easily go into canter. Then, if the horse can easily think to the left or the right, and there's no resistance into canter, you get the thoughts exactly where you want it on the turn or whatever, and then you squeeze. The sooner you strike the canter, the less anxiety in the horse. The longer it takes, the more the horse rattles up and starts to think any direction. So, and then you get your canter lead.
Yep. Yeah,
so
there
you can
you
just let
go.
a horse fall into the canter, when they're trotting and thinking in a direction, but you've got to be careful doing that.
And there are videos on this as well on that membership, Sarah. So you should be able to find those, and then you can actually see it, Mark training the horses exactly as he's been describing, which might be helpful for you. Okay, let's go on to horses and how they are reacting with the bit. I've got a couple of interesting questions. One is from Rachel in Australia again. She's got a count drafting horse who is evasive of the bit. She's been riding him in a halter and finding that she can stop him quite well from the halter. But as soon as she transitions back to the bridle, he becomes evasive of it. He finds a way to break at the pole or pushes hard into her hands and falls heavy on his front. Have you got any tips for her?
The extent you go to in the halter, and I would suggest if you're going back to a bit, especially a snaffle bit, I would transition from the halter to the side pull, because the side pull is going to give you that side reins that a snaffle bit would. So it's going to be closer on your turns and things like that. You get more accuracy in your turns. When you work your horse, one thing you have to work, especially if they put a lot of downward pressure and bend or lean into the bit and go on their forehand. I spend a fair bit of time on the ground teaching horses, and there's a video on it, about a camp draft horse. She was on a forehand and rushy, and I did a lot of lifting just in my one hand, just lift and float, lift and float, lift and float. So basically, when the horse goes to bear its head down into pressure, and this starts off in halter pressure because it's a bit cruel to do it in the bit because they've probably been taught to bend their head, and when they can't do that, they don't know what to do. So basically I do it in a halter, then maybe a side pull with us just to stand beside them. I lift up near past their jaw until they kind of lift and they loosen their wither up and start to move across and then walk softly. So then every time they bear down and push really down hard, you go, not available, and that's on the ground, not available. And then they lift up and you feel a wither lift up. And then from that position, you can move the shoulders over. You can lift and go backwards, and you can lift and go forwards, or shoulders over, then forwards or backwards, or hindquarter yield. And that's all in your body control. And then after a while, they feel lifting of the rein means lift and engage their body and be ready to sort of shift in any direction, but very softly. And you teach them to have that light forward walk where they're not heavy. And then basically from there, you go back to the reins in the holder and you do more lifting to back. Lift to back, so when the horse pushes down, you back up, lift up, back up, and teach them through turning and stuff to do a nice soft walk. And then just in your halter and your side pull, you just squeeze forward into a few steps of walk and lift to back up, squeeze forward and lift to back up until the horse is really light, walking forward very softly. And then what you'll start to find is you can walk your horse further on a looser rein, and the horse is not just falling down on the front going, I'm on loose rein now, just plonk down. They start to walk a little bit more alert and upright, ready for that backup. And it's like a rehab program where you're kind of doing the same little exercises all the time, just manipulating that horse back up into a light feeling. And then when the horse is really good at not over flexing, it just bends nice and you can feel it through the reins, and you start to do hindquarter yields through indirect rein and stuff like that. And it's really lifting up to that indirect rein that moves the shoulder around, and then you can draw it to your belly button, and then the horse moves its hindquarter softly. Then what happens is your horse is getting more comfortable, more balanced. Then you transfer to the bit. You might just have to do a fair bit more in the halter and side pull to your horse's really going a lot better, not just going, oh, well, he's a bit better, now I'll transfer over. You want him to go really well, balancing into his turns nice, doing nice turnarounds where you can sort of back him up and do a backward turn on the hindquarter, and he's really kind of lifting, and he's really mobile in his feet, and he's loose, and he can stay in balance all the time. And then once he's doing it without you having to do it, he's kind of in balance really softly. Then you transfer back to the bit. You might just do it in increments, though. You might just very quietly just pick up on the reins and lift them and do the same thing. Pick up, back up a little, good boy. Pick up, back up, and first of all, teach him not to bear down or bury down into that bit, and just start off small and then sort of walk him a bit further into the back up. That's probably the first one I do till he's really following the two reins backwards in the bit and taking away all that bearing down, pushing, and then you slowly work to one rein at a time and steering. But because you've done a bit more or a fair bit more and he's more balanced, he should find the movement and the thought change a lot easier, opposed to kind of going back to old habits of being heavy and on the forehand.
Okay, and this question is from Jo from New Zealand, and it's still sort of in the same area. She's got a horse that reefs his head back. So she's had him for about 6 months. They've been doing an awful lot of leading, and she's enjoyed the vast improvement in the connection that she's gained since she's joined your membership. But she's finding that when they go to the mounting block, even though his ears are on her before she mounts, he has this annoying habit of reefing his head and pulling on the reins. So tack and teeth are all good. I'm not quite sure what that means. Anyway, it's like he's expecting her to respond and snatch up on the reins. So she's trying to ignore it, but she's just not sure how to address it or whether she should be ignoring it. What would you do?
Yeah. Okay. So tack and teeth, I think she's addressed him having good teeth. Got the dentist out, make sure there's no sharp teeth or anything and his saddle and his bridle and everything's fitting comfortably. So and that's another thing. We always got to test if everything that's on the horse is comfortable, not hurting it and fitting well. But in his case, it's like the common scenario of a horse that is used to sort of someone sitting on and riding off, and they're kind of got that forward thought already. So his ears are on her, but there's a bit of a habit in there, and habits become, it's almost like becomes a neuro pathway. This happens next, and this is what they do. Just like people get in habits. One thing I do a lot of at the mounting block is it's not just present the saddle, be connected on me, and then get on. I do a lot of leading at the mounting block. Now, I joke about mounting block lessons all the time. I say we shouldn't have to do mounting block lessons with horses. Once they're taught how to lead well, they trust us, they're good on both sides, they just lead up to a mounting block and they're soft. So basically on the mounting block, your job is to teach him to be more soft in the reins. So, you might start off in a halter and mount on and off with a holder on, because in the halter you can lead him around the mounting block. So I do a lot of come around the mounting block, back up, come forward 1 step, back up 1 step, back up 3 steps, come forward 2 steps, stop there. Wait, good, back up, stop, and get them so kind of soft at following the feel, that their mind's on the feel, and all that anticipation of something else happening next is gone because you've interrupted that thought pattern. by just getting them in the moment of, and out of a pattern. And sometimes, obviously he would have had a pattern of, someone does this certain pattern and he reefs his head and he's ready to go and they've snatched up on him and he's prepared for that snatch up because they never got him soft enough, all those things. And that's why he's like that. So basically you're interrupting that whole pattern by teaching him, well, the only thing I'm going to do is teach you how to follow that rein and soften. So when I pick up on that rope, you're going to back up softly and you're going forward softly. And then you might put your foot in the stirrup and just maybe go, oh, crikey, I can't remember if I was getting on or getting off. Was I getting on? Oh, gee, I've got a bit of a memory lapse. Got too much on this week anyway. So you take your foot out of the stirrup and then you lead him a bit and say, oh, while I'm leading you, I might suddenly remember if I was getting on you or getting off you. And then you get off the mounting block and go, oh, I can't remember. Maybe I'll just get back on the mounting block again and see if I can figure it out. And then all of a sudden you half step up on him and you go, oh, was I getting on or getting off again? Can't remember. Until if you can't remember what you're doing, he won't know what you're doing next either. So he's just going to go, I better sit. I just better just sort of just listen to her and just wait till she finally figures it out because obviously she's forgotten. So, and then by the time you've remembered if you were getting on him or off him, he won't know what he was doing and he'll be just with you waiting for you because he couldn't anticipate what you wanted next anyway. So you sort of, you're breaking that habit. But in the meantime, you're not just breaking the habit, you're teaching him to be soft in the reins, not just sort of, break. You can break a habit by doing something differently, but I always work on if a horse reefs the reins, we have to teach them an alternative to reefing the reins, which is soften and follow the feel. So by the time you got on him, he's forgotten what he wanted to do and you finally remembered that you were going to get on him, and then he's also soft in the reins and he's also very centered in that lead rope.
Go. Wow. Great tips. All right. Last question for this week is from Katie, and it's about young horses and when to turn them out. She is loving your approach to starting young horses and setting them up for life. She says your insights have been so valuable. She's got a young filly that she's been starting and is ready to spell just due to her own workload, but has been going under saddle. She would like to know your thoughts as to how you gauge when a horse is ready to be turned out after they've been started for a bit. She knows, obviously, it depends on the individual horse, their age, maturity and strength, etc. But she'd just love to know sort of what you're looking for and your approach to bringing them sort of into work again.
Over the years, I think my thoughts have changed on this. I guess I used to believe what a lot of people told me because I was learning the ropes years ago when I was taking on horses to start. And there was always this thing you turn them out before they go sour. What I'm noticing now is with getting a horse's mind engaged in what they're doing and them going towards their thoughts and being part of the process opposed to being manipulated by pressure all the time and starting to kind of get a bit sour or shut down a bit. A horse's mind can cope with constant work for longer, even a young horse. And if you're only doing it like 2 or 3 times a week and riding, you can go a fair bit of time, and the horse stays interested. So you can have him in a longer work for longer without thinking, and it's only 3 days a week. If it was 5 or 6 days a week that you were trying to work on, I'd be a bit concerned that maybe that's too much every single day and they want a few days free where they don't have to come into work and just be out in the paddock. But 3 days a week's not too bad depending on how you stagger it too. So basically, the physical workload of it, like if you got a young horse, if you're spanning out your 3 days a week, you're also, if you're doing it right, you're not overloading them with constant riding and stuff like that. So you can go longer as well. And when they come back in, they should be soft because the last interaction with them, they were okay. And nowadays I can turn a horse out for a long time. And because they were feeling good with the education when I let them out, they pick up very quickly where they left off whereas the horses that I get off stations and that were just kind of shut down and, had the bucks ridden out of them, they come back in as, they'd come back in as buck jumpers because the last memory was just being shut down and kind of frightened, but just sort of finally, just being safe because they had nothing else left in them, but they come back in quite scary. So basically, I haven't really answered your question, but if you've got work coming up and you need to spell your horse, then make sure that things are going good, your horse is feeling good, and spell it. It'll enjoy the rest, it'll go out, it'll have a holiday, and it'll come back in soft. If you feel that you've got a little spot there where the horse is a little challenged, but it's a spot you can sort of help it through, and you're just on the pivotal point of making a good thought change, then keep going a little bit longer, get that thought change, get the softness, and then maybe spell your horse. You don't want to be spelling it in that hard part of a brace, or you might have made a mistake and there's a brace or something like that. you maybe have to fix that a little bit and then let your horse out, let them come back in, whenever. But I used to work on, when I used to start horses, I used to start them, get them going. I'd say to the person, you get used to your horse over the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks and then spell it for a while, give it a rest. A starting process was a fairly intensive process for a young horse. But if you've got your own sort of program, it's fairly steady. You can go a lot longer in work and not worry them too much, as I say, as long as they're in the right mindset. But if they've had like full-time work, then you give them a spell for 2 or 3 weeks and they always come back in nice after those spells because as I say, they left with a good mindset. They just had a bit of a break and they come in fresh and, ready for some more.
It's amazing how the right mindset is so important to them being able to perceive us and education in a positive way, and sets them up to be able to cope with, just more learning and for a longer period of time. It's incredible how that all comes together.
Yeah. It's like, just to put it in a human context, people that are in high-stress jobs that they actually start to, some of them are in a high-stress job, but they kind of like it, but it's so stressful, they cherish their holiday and they really have a full detox and they come back fresh after their 2 or 3 week holiday. Someone who's in a medium, okay sort of job and they really, really like it, they have a holiday and they want to go back to work. They're like, I enjoy my job. And a horse that is in the right, you got the right amount of, stimulant, you've got in the right mindset. It doesn't need that big holiday to come back in fresh because it's like the same as the people. And the people in the high stress jobs that they don't like, well, they have a big holiday and they still don't want to go back to work. They're a lot fresher. They feel good, but they don't want to go back to the job site because they're just over it. So you don't want to be that one. Definitely don't want to be that one. The one where they're a little high stressed and whatever and a bit underworked. Well, sometimes okay, and that's sometimes where a performance horse has got to go. But you want to, if you just got your horse in steady work, you want to be that one where they're enjoying their job. You're not overtaxing their body. They're not tired all the time. They're well fed. And then, if they have a bit of a break, it doesn't really matter. They want to come back to work anyway.
Wonderful. Hope that helps. And thank you so much for all the detail that you're giving out, Mark. It's greatly appreciated. We will be back next week answering more questions.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, everybody.
If you'd like to ask Mark your question and get his insights to help you and your horse, it's easy to join Mark Langley online. Head over to marklangley.com.au and hit join. It's less than a couple of coffees. And the Q&A is just a piece of a whole package designed to support you and your horse with great training.